You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. We were here for a second stream today.
I'm
Introduce yourself real
Laurdee from
quick.
Cooking with Laurdee. It's so nice to hang out with you guys today.
I am Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist here on Twitch, trying to do some science outreach. We're on this big road trip right here, all across the Intermountain West, and we're at the Dinosaur Journey Museum. I'm going to put my mask on in just a minute, as a courtesy to everybody else. Fully vaccinated, but still trying to do my part nonetheless. And back there is the Dinosaur Journey Museum. Out here is the lobby. And I was just remarking about this. You know who this is, Laurdee?
So Jack Pointer.
It is. Yeah. Used to have these teepee tent sites out in the Two Medicine Formation near Egg Mountain with like Maiasaura and Troodon and all those dinosaurs. This is a National Geographic photo from when they did a big dinosaurs issue. A lot of these are... There's a Mosasaurus skull, Eoraptor skull. My viewers will be very familiar with that skull. Anyway, welcome to the Dinosaur Journey Museum. So I first visited here, it would have been back in the year 2014 at the Mid-Mesozoic Field Conference, which was a ton of fun. And back then, Rebecca Hunt Foster's husband, John Foster, I think was the curator of paleontology here. I'm not sure if he still is, but yeah, this is where we had like one of our big gala events. It was pretty cool. Right here we've got a big fleshed out Tyrannosaurus head. That is life size right there. Pretty cool. Yeah, let me open up chat here so I can see what everybody's saying. And hey, Apocalypse, earlier tour went great. So glad you're here. Glad you could join us. We're gonna see.
So cool.
Isn't this neat? We're gonna see a lot of like fleshed out dinosaur reconstructions. We're gonna see some animatronic dinosaurs. There's some stuff that's kind of aimed at kids, but there's definitely a lot of stuff for other people, for paleontologists. So, yeah, this is gonna be cool. And behind you, do you see up there, Laurdee? We have a young Camarasaurus up here.
I was going to guess Camarasaurus.
You were.
Because of the skull.
Exactly, yeah. It's got a very distinctive skull right there. Pretty neat. Very, very cool. And I love how you walk underneath it in order to get into the museum. That's pretty neat, yeah. So this gives you some sense for like what a medium-sized Camarasaurus would look like, about how big it was. Not the biggest of the Morrison sauropods, but still... It's kind of funny to think about. This is one of the smaller sauropods from the Morrison Formation. It's still bigger than any animal we have walking around today. Even like a medium-sized dinosaur back then was, you know, much bigger than anything we've got in the present day. All right, so it says one way. Yeah.
That little thing be its ear.
That is its ear right there. Yeah, yeah. So
I was
dinosaur
like, what
ears.
is that hole?
Uh-huh. Birds have the same thing. And other reptiles too. That's probably based on more of a reptile one. Yeah. So it's got osteoderms, kind of like a crocodile on there. I don't think we think that about Tyrannosaurus anymore. Yeah. And there is, of course, you're very familiar with this at this point, everybody, a Tyrannosaurus foot with the arctometatarsalia condition, all those metatarsals squished together like that. Yeah. And here is a fleshed out Tyrannosaurus foot and leg. Check that out. That's pretty neat.
That's really cool.
I like how you can see the bones right there. And then there's the femur going up the top. So this is a left leg that we're looking at. There's the hallux, digit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then unguals, phalanges, metatarsals. And then we've got the tibia right there and the femur up into there. Massive animal. It's cool to see it with flesh on the bone like that, be able to see the flesh too under the skin. It's instructive. Helps you think of these things as being living animals, you know? Yeah. And over here we've got some trackways. Very cool. These are tracks from a heron, genus Ardea. I've actually worked on these guys. I've got a paper with some heron stuff. There's a lovely heron right there. A heron.
We have a couple of questions about the Tyrannosaur.
Okay, cool. We'll get to those questions in a minute. I'll show you. This is kind of neat. We've got some tracks of Growlithe, little three-toed tracks here.
Is that a dinosaur?
And then bigger one, Hadrosaur right here. Got big wide toes, not particularly sharp claws on there. And then we've got some theropod tracks. These actually have pointy claws on them. Pretty neat. This is real, by the way. Very cool. Another Hadrosaur track. Most dinosaur tracks look kind of blobby like that. They usually don't look perfect. Yeah. And we had some questions about the Tyrannosaur?
Is the back digit mostly used for balance?
The back digit is vestigial, we think. So that wouldn't really have contacted the ground very much.
Vestigial means not used anymore?
Vestigial means, yeah, the ancestors would have used that. So the ancestors of the dinosaurs, other archosaurs had 4 toes contacting the ground. And dinosaurs only had 3 for the most part. But it's kind of funny, in some theropod dinosaurs, like the therizinosaurs, they get much heavier, much slower, and that 4th toe eventually gets bigger and comes down and contacts the ground. So Therizinosaurus or Lycosaurus, they had 4 toes contacting the ground. But most of your theropod dinosaurs, they've only got those 3, and that 4th one there is vestigial. I say 4th one, but that's actually digit 1. That's equivalent to the big toe on you, or like a thumb. That's digit 1 right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. In birds, we call this the hallux, digit 1 right there. And in a lot of birds, the hallux is really big, that digit is really long, and they actually use that for perching. The 3 toes go forward like this, and then 1 in the back, and they kind of perch on branches and that kind of thing. Yeah. More footprints over here. Yeah?
It's interesting, we were talking about signage at the last museum.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
way that it's almost permanent-ish at those exhibits, and it had a really hefty one. Here I've noticed, not only is it more economical to have papers in plastic, but it can be updated.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be really easy to update that kind of thing. And I've worked at museums before where they have printed displays not under plastic like this. And they've actually had like a printer and like a cutter thing so they could make their own. At the Badlands Dinosaur Museum in North Dakota, where I worked with Denver Fowler, it was like that, which is kind of nice. You know, being able to change displays whenever you want. It's pretty cool. Change the signage. That's a great name. Eubrontes is a genus of footprint. So the way that it works with paleoichnology, with like studying trace fossils, is that sometimes traces are actually given their own name, and that's just a name for that trace. So whenever you see that particular kind of footprint, like, oh, that's Eubrontes, it's got all these characteristics that typify it as Eubrontes. It's really difficult to match that to the actual animal, but the track itself gets called Eubrontes. Laurdee, this morning when we were in Vernal and we saw that U-Haul truck with the Dilophosaurus on the side, that was actually Eubrontes. So that's the one for the state of Connecticut, where Eubrontes is from the Connecticut River Valley. And Eubrontes has been found all over the country, but it's particularly famous from there. And that's what the U-Haul truck was referring to. They didn't show the trackway, they showed what they think might be the animal, Dilophosaurus, but same creature, Eubrontes. It's such a great name. Its name means true thunder. Eubrontes. I love it. It's a very euphonious name. Really cool. It says cast courtesy of Gaston Design. I think Rob Gaston still lives here near Fruita. When I was here in 2014 and visited this museum, we actually got to go take a tour of his workshop. He does all of these really cool, casts and replicas of dinosaur fossils and other ancient creatures. His workshop was phenomenal. It was so much fun to go see these things. And he would have the real fossils there in order to make molds and casts of them. And then he'd, sell these casts and mount skeletons and stuff for museums around the country and I think around the world. But since he's local, he donated some of these, and that is really cool. So good on you, Bob Gaston. The Velociraptor skull that I have in my office, I got from Bob Gaston. Pretty cool. Over here, we saw some hip elements of different dinosaurs at Dinosaur National Monument earlier today. And this right here, we don't have anybody around us right now. Should I take my mask? Just slip it down for a while? Just for a moment. Apatosaurus is one of these dinosaurs we saw at Dinosaur National Monument. You're looking at the underside of the pelvis right here. So those are the ilia right there. Those are the sacrum, this vertebrae. And then, see that kind of like U shape right there? That's where the femur fits in. So again, this is upside down right now, what you're looking at. And so the pubis and the ischium would fit onto it there. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Gives you some sense of the size of this animal. I mean, it's so big that you really can't take it out of the jacket. Like, yeah, and like all the wood reinforcing it right there. Super cool. Yeah. And then what have we got over here? This looks like a cervical vertebra, maybe? It's hard to say. Yeah, this has got to be a sauropod cervical. Really, really big one. This is one of the neck vertebrae from probably like at the base of the neck.
That's a neck vertebrae?
Yeah, I think so.
That's so gigantic. I'm struck by it every time that I see something huge.
I'm looking at this. Something about it tells me that it's pelvic, but it doesn't look like. No, this has got to be a cervical vert. Yeah, yeah. Pretty cool. And there we have Camptosaurus. We've got a full skeletal mount of Camptosaurus. I have that hand over there, the right hand. I have a cast of that at home in my office. Yeah, it's really cool. Very unheralded, like, this dinosaur doesn't get enough attention, Camptosaurus. It's important, being an, like, early kind of iguanodont-style ornithopod from the Morrison Formation. Yeah. So dinosaurs like this evolved into later iguanodonts like Iguanodon, and then possibly also into hadrosaurs, too. You're looking at something similar to the ancestor of the iguanodonts and the hadrosaurs. Duck-billed dinosaurs, which would later go on to kind of take over the world. Pretty cool. And here's Camptosaurus. There's a life reconstruction of it right here. Camarasaurus, Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Diplodocus. These different dinosaurs from the Morrison Formation. We saw all of these at Dinosaur National Monument, except for Mimura pelta. Didn't see this little ankylosaur there. I'm guessing we might see some elements from it today at this museum.
How can you tell which arm/hand leg is left or right?
They're shaped differently, yeah. So like with femurs, for instance, you've got the femur head that fits into the hip socket. And so, you know, if the femur head is going that way, then that is clearly a left femur. If it's going the other way, it's a right femur. And these are bent too. The name Camarasaurus actually means bent lizard. I think that's in reference to how the femur kind of comes down at an angle like that. It bends a little bit. So yeah. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. We're going to take a look at this right here. Ooh, these are real elements. There's a femur of the official Fruita dinosaur? What is this? This specimen was found at the Fruita Paleontological Area, just across the river from Dinosaur Journey Museum. Ceratosaurus was a carnivorous dinosaur during the late Jurassic and was about 20 feet long. As you can see, the animal had large teeth for its size. So there's a cast. You can tell this is made of just, like resin right here, unpainted. Very obviously a cast. Really cool. And there's that nose horn. For laurdee, you were talking about how you like the nose horn on Ceratosaurus. There it is right there. Very cool. This sign says Ceratosaurus probably fed on ornithopod, stegosaur, and young sauropod dinosaurs. There's a nice reconstruction of it right there. I like the simple line work. Sometimes that's really impactful. And here we talked about Haplocanthosaurus yesterday, and how rare it is. And here, we had one from Snowmass, Colorado, I guess. Pretty cool. Yeah. Haplocanthosaurus is a primitive animal and very rare. It is known from less than a dozen fossil specimens, possibly as few as 4 individuals. Haplocanthosaurus is found in older layers of the Morrison Formation than its more famous cousins. With rare dinosaurs like Haplocanthosaurus, every additional fossil is the chance to learn something new about the animal. Not particularly large compared to... I think we're right there. You know what this reminds me of? This one right here with the guy waving. I wonder if it's inspired by this, but it reminds me of the human figures on the Voyager probe. Yeah. Just with a hat and a rock pick and clothes on. Pretty cool. Yeah, and these folks, I guess, owned the land and donated the specimen to the museum here. Pretty cool. Here's some paleontologists and volunteers moving this by hand. I was telling you earlier about how, things haven't really changed all that much since the late 1800s. In fact, some things have even gotten more difficult. Like, it might be more difficult to get hold of a mule or a horse than it used to be. So you've just got to use people power in order to move that kind of thing. And here are some actual elements from this Haplocanthosaurus. Not much to look at, but still really cool to know this is from such a rare dinosaur. Pretty cool. Here's some different quarries in the Morrison Formation. These are all near Fruita, which is pretty cool.
A real mean kid.
This is kind of a faunal
With
list right
6-inch
here.
daggers for teeth, he was the terror of his neighborhood.
Pretty neat. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Some more fossil tracks right here. Hi there. All right. I like the orthodontic work right there. Diplodocid sauropod. Oh, interesting. Do you want to ask me these questions?
Okay, I'll ask you these questions.
Okay.
All right. In which of these states have the remains of Allosaurus been found? South Dakota, Oklahoma, or New Mexico?
Wait, only one of those?
Which of these states?
Which of those states? I don't know if we have a lot of Jurassic stuff from South Dakota or New Mexico. Oklahoma, I think we do. I'm going to say... Actually, if they're asking like that, I'm going to say all 3. Let's take a look.
All of them. Ding, 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 ding.
Yes. All right.
Were frogs around in the late Cretaceous?
They were around in the late Cretaceous, yes. That's maybe a semi-recent discovery, though, so let's see what it says. Yes.
Ding,
There we
ding,
go.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right.
Let's do one more. Name the 3 periods of Earth history in which dinosaurs lived.
Easy. Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. Yeah.
Yes.
Although, if we're going to be pedantic about it, we'd also say the Paleogene and Neogene during the Age of Mammals, because you had theropod dinosaurs still surviving in the form of birds. But we're not going to be pedantic, so forget I said that.
Near what western Colorado town was Supersaurus found?
Oh, shoot. Western Colorado town, Supersaurus. I know Jim Jensen found it from Brigham Young University, or he was the one who's credited with digging it up. Western Colorado town of Supersaurus. I'm going to say Grand Junction. Delta. Did you guess that?
No, I didn't guess that.
This is easy. That's
Mongolia.
Yep. What town west of Denver gives its name to the rock that has yielded skeletons of Stegosaurus? I'm going to say Morrison, Colorado. There you go. The Morrison Formation is named after Morrison, Colorado. Not named after Jim Morrison of The Doors. Sorry to disappoint anybody. Yeah. We'll say that Jim Morrison of the Doors is named after the dinosaur bearing formation. But yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, who's this?
Oh, Brachiosaurus. Check this out. Yeah. This is significantly smaller than the Brachiosaurus skull we saw mounted on that skeleton at the museum in Lehigh, but very cool. Oh, and this is one of my favorite photos. Here's Elmer Riggs wearing a sun helmet, lying down next to, that's gotta be, it's not a femur, that's gotta be a humerus, and the crest must be on the other side of it. Yeah, pretty cool. Here's a Brachiosaurus arm right here. Look at how big that is. There's a reason they call it the arm lizard, Brachiosaurus. That's what the name means. This animal has some pretty impressive arms.
This is an arm.
That's an arm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Really cool.
Compared.
I know, your arm is, well, let's see, how
It's
tall are you?
scrawny.
You're
I'm like
11'8".
about.
Yeah. And so, compare that to this. It's a tall dinosaur. Go right there. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So what you're looking at right here is one of these arms. Again, it's gotta be, I bet you their humerus is actually longer than their femur. Or at least close to it. We talked about this yesterday. In most dinosaurs, the femur is the longest bone in the body. Also the most massive. Might not be the case for Brachiosaurus. And this looks like a femur right here from a Brachiosaurus. Yeah. Collected outside Grand Junction. This is the replica right here. And they have the metal rod that supported it right here. Again, this is more common in like antique dinosaur mounts. But it's funny that they've included that in the cast. And here's a lovely model of a Brachiosaurus. I like that a lot. Wow. Oh, and these, we've got some archaeology mixed in with our paleontology here. This is really neat. These are some of the artifacts from the site. Tools used by the Elmer Riggs crew during excavation. We've got some files and some chisels. Here's a wood crate panel used to box bones for shipment. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Again, this stuff is local to the Fruita area, so it's really cool to see this. Yeah. Riggs Hill, Grand Junction, one right there. So we are right near here right now in Fruita. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. There's a lot of history in this area, not just from tens of millions of years ago, but also from the history of the discovery of these animals. It's so cool. We're going to be in Grand Junction later, so it's really neat to know that it's where this stuff is from. Now, before we go off into here, I was really happy to see this has been updated. It's a little grizzly right here. And this used to move. I guess it doesn't anymore. This didn't used to have feathers on it. The last time I was here back in 2014, yeah, it was just all, all scaly skin. This is Utah Raptor right here. And it is pulling the head off of, I don't know who that's supposed to be. Some unfortunate young titanosaur or something. Yeah, Utah Raptor. I'm so glad they've updated it. That put feathers on it.
They did a really good job if they like retrofitted an older.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job of that.
I mean, it would be nice to see like some airbrushing, kind of like. But you know what? Still, it's calling attention to the fact that it has feathers. That's cool. That's very cool. They didn't have to do this. Most museums don't update their stuff like this. So this is cool. Kudos to them for this. It's good stuff. And it says enhancements for Utah Raptor made possible by Dr. Michael Nest. Pretty cool. And the Grand Junction Lions Club. Good on them for contributing the funds and maybe the labor to feathering this animal. That's super cool. And like I see even on the feathers by the head, there's some blood on there. Ugh. Wow. Cool. Well, we'll continue on this way. We'll go off in this direction. This is about a little bit bigger than life size, probably. That head is really big for Utahraptor. But I don't know, maybe they did get that big. We don't have that many specimens of them yet.
Its mouth is wide open too, so
Yeah.
it looks smaller if it's closed.
Uh-huh. Pretty cool. And, okay, we're going back into the Triassic period right here with the Chinle group. Got some beautiful fossils here. Look at these cycad fronds. Oh my goodness. Zemites species. And I am looking forward to getting back to Oakland and checking on my cycads, and I hope they're doing well. I hope Ios has been watering them. Yeah?
Yeah, they are.
Nice. Gonna be collecting some more sometime soon. And we've got these nice different critters from the Triassic period, from the Chinle group. These guys are called metoposaurs. They are, these are amphibians. Sometimes they get called the, toilet seat-headed amphibians, because basically their heads look like, kind of remind you of toilet seats. These are kind of like giant salamanders. I don't think they're related to salamanders, but they may have had a lifestyle similar to like modern alligators or something like that. They've got all these little teeth in there, presumably for catching fish. But they'd probably eat whatever they could get hold of. But those teeth probably evolved for catching and holding fish. Pretty neat. And here are some actual tracks of probably phytosaurs, maybe some small dinosaurs. Pretty neat. Oh, it says Theropoda and Prosauropoda. Okay. Forget it. Those are not phytosaur tracks. I guess those are from an early sauropodomorph dinosaur, one of the ancestors of critters like this Brachiosaurus. They were a lot smaller during the Triassic. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Oh, and here we have, it's funny that this is here in Colorado, we have Utah's oldest dinosaur. This sacrum is from a small predatory dinosaur which was found near Moab by museums of western Colorado volunteer. This is the oldest fossil bone of a dinosaur from the entire state of Utah that you're looking at right there. How jealous must they be at some of those museums in Utah? Yeah. Let's see. I'll get my microphone set up here properly. That'll be fine. And we've done a lot of talking about Diplodocus. They've got a lovely model of a Diplodocus right here. See how slender this animal is. Can we get some sauropods in the chat here? Some emotes going? The ones that I have as an emote, or 4 emotes rather, that is Apatosaurus, which is from the same group as Diplodocus, just a little more chunky. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. If Diplodocus were the Corvette of the Diplodocids, then maybe Apatosaurus would be the Camaro. They're both from the same manufacturer, you can say. From the same family. That analogy really doesn't work. Oh, Lord, do you remember when we saw the Supersaurus scapula?
Yeah.
At the museum in Lehigh? Mm-hmm. Here's a cast of it right here. There are casts of this in museums around the country and I think around the world. But it's really cool to be able to see it there in front of you. Measure up to it. So let's see, do you want to stand in front of it?
I'm like 8'9".
Uh-huh. So she's very, very tall
And this is even taller.
Yeah.
A real
Your shoulder blade is not that big.
No.
With 6-inch daggers for teeth, he was the terror of his
Nor is
neighborhood.
mine. Really cool. Supersaurus, we still don't really know if this is if this is its own genus of dinosaur. It could just be a super large Barosaurus. It could be an older or younger Barosaurus, chronostratigraphically. So this could be, something that Supersaurus evolved into, or something that Barosaurus evolved into or evolved from. We don't really know. We need more material. We need more people out there digging. We need more funds. We need more workers. We need it. So from very, very large to very small now, I'd like to introduce you to Fruitidens. Fruita dens right here. Smallest plant-eating dinosaur in the world. That might be true. I bet you it is. But this is from right here in Fruita, Colorado, hence the name. And here's some work that happened back in the 70s in this area. And I think during that work, Fruita dens was uncovered, and it was only named back in, in Proc B in 2010. So this was still really new when I came here to see it for the first time during the Mid-Mesozoic Field Conference.
Is this model actual size?
It is, yeah.
That's so cute. And I love its little hairs on its back.
Yeah, those little quills.
Quills, yeah.
Yeah, they might be... We don't know if this animal had those. But that's based on... Is it Tiana Yulong, I think, is a heterodontosaur ornithopod that seems to have little quills like that on it, maybe. So maybe these guys did too. I don't know. I like it. It's a neat little touch. It's a conversation starter. And speaking of small ornithopods, we also have... I think this is the same skeleton that we've been seeing at these museums. It looks very familiar. This is called Othnielia at some of the other museums, like the one we saw yesterday in Vernal and the one that we saw in Lehigh. But here they're calling it Nanosaurus. And so this is... It's just further illustration that these guys are kind of a mess taxonomically. Somebody needs to really get in here, figure out what's what, how many of these are the same animal, how many of them are just different growth stages of the same animal, how many of them are, chronostratomorphs or whatever. Like, you give an animal 1 million years and it'll change and look a little bit different. Should you give it a new name, or should it be a different species within the same genus, or what? These are all really squishy gray areas. These are good questions. And they need resolving, and this is kind of an example of that. One of these small, beaky, plant-eating dinosaurs. Probably a very fast runner. It's probably its primary means of defense, is running away. Maybe these guys also lived in burrows, like their cousins from Idaho, like Arictodromius. We don't know yet. We need more work. Let's see. Oh, you went to high school in Grand Junction and lived not far from Fruita? Very cool, Mikey Likes. Awesome. Yeah, we've been having a great day here so far. We stopped in Dinosaur, Colorado after we left Dinosaur National Monument. Had lunch there. It's been super hot and super windy outside. Like 40-mile-an-hour winds. 100 degrees outside, the car says. So yeah. Right here. What's this dinosaur, laurdee?
The Camarasaurus.
Yeah. It also says it right there, but yeah. So the skull that I have is actually based on this specimen. I inflated it a little bit to make it closer to an adult size, but this is about the size of an adult Camarasaurus skull right here. So significantly larger than the one that I have at home in my office. But yeah, pretty neat. And there's something like, I think there's half a dozen different Camarasaurus species. Camarasaurus grandis, Camarasaurus lentis. There's a few other ones. Yeah, I think they might be kind of a mess taxonomically too. This is really cool that I get to show you this, because this is one of the skeletal mounts that I didn't get to show you at Dinosaur National Monument earlier today. Yeah, they have the same one there. And this specimen was actually taken from Dinosaur National Monument. The original is now at the museum in Pittsburgh, the Carnegie Museum. But yeah, very, very cool. I think still the best preserved, most complete sauropod ever found is this specimen right here. This young Camarasaurus.
Cosmic Star Dream asks, how big were their brains?
How big are their brains? I can kind of show you over here. Not very large, and that's by design. There's a reason for that. But this is an adult Camarasaurus skull, and the brain case is up in here. So the brain is not very big. It's maybe the size of like a baseball or something like that, maybe a little bit smaller. But think about it. When you have this animal right here, or also over there, when it's full grown, it's a good 60 feet long, like almost 20 meters. It's got this really long neck, its head at the very end of it. When you're an animal whose neck is that long, when that's like integral to the way that you feed and just your daily life, it behooves you to not have a very large brain. Think about if this dinosaur had a huge brain at the end of a very long neck, had this little head like that, it would cause all kinds of problems. You would need a lot of blood flow to it. It would be really expensive. It wouldn't work out. So they evolved smaller brains. And it was a strategy that worked really well for them. These were immensely successful dinosaurs. Camarasaurus in particular is the most common sauropod dinosaur from the Morrison Formation. We've got more skeletons of Camarasaurus, more elements than I think any other dinosaur from the Morrison. And so, I don't know. They were very successful. They were very good at what they did. And part of that is because of the fact that they had a small brain. And they were just as intelligent as they needed to be. It really wasn't a problem for them. So, yeah. Right here we have a very old reconstruction of Stegosaurus here. How would you compare this to the one that we saw at Dinosaur National Monument, Laura? The Sinclair Dinoland one. Which one do you like better?
I like the one at the National Monument better.
Me too. It is cool that they have this.
It just kind of looks lumpy like cottage cheese.
It really is. Like, this is how people used to think dinosaurs looked. So again, it's got those semi-sprawling limbs, tail dragging on the ground. It's very chunky. It doesn't look particularly bright or active. Yeah, it's kind of more of like a weird curiosity than like a real animal. Compare that to here, where we have a skeletal mount of Stegosaurus. Much more dynamic, much more interesting. You can picture this being like a real living animal walking around.
You think this display is newer
Certainly,
than that one?
Yes. So that must have been put together, I'm guessing, in like the 60s. This was probably put together in the 80s or 90s. Or maybe even after that. But yeah, so its tail is no longer dragging on the ground. It'd be held even higher if it weren't kind of rearing up on its haunches. Head is held up a little bit higher too. It's kind of launching its front limbs off of the ground. Maybe it sees some tasty leaves up there or something that it would like to eat. Yeah. Really cool. I really like this mount. This is neat. I mean, Stegosaurs have a kind of natural grace about them, and that doesn't often get captured in skeletal mounts or illustrations and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see this here. It makes me happy. We've got those lovely plates up there. So we talked earlier about how stegosaur plates, we now think that they were in kind of an alternating pattern.
You're not even a good lion.
Maybe along kind of a single row like this. I don't know what the latest consensus is on stegosaur plates, but them alternating, I think that's a done deal. Whether they were two alternating rows or a single alternating row, like you see here, I'm not sure if we really know yet. Pretty cool, yeah. Pretty awesome. And I wish we could get a little closer. I could show you the texture on those plates. Maybe you can kind of see it. Let's see all of those grooves running up them. These are blood vessel grooves, almost certainly to help supply nutrients to the keratin sheath that would be over those. Imagine this being a very, very brightly colored animal. Very showy. It went through the trouble of evolving these magnificent display features along its back, these wonderful plates. Like having those just be dull colored wouldn't really make much sense. And then over here, let's check out Dryosaurus real quickly. Dryosaurus, truly the king of dinosaurs. Get it? But yeah. It's a little ornithopod from the Morrison Formation. This display here says this skeleton is based on material from a site near Uravan, Colorado, discovered by former Museum of Western Colorado curator Rod Sheets. Very cool. Very cool. Really neat. Would you believe that this is my favorite dinosaur when I was a kid? Dryosaurus.
Brontosaurus.
For a while at least.
Fella, isn't it? 70 feet long.
Really neat. Really neat.
The scales at a substantial 35
Anyway, apparently this
tons.
site also produced bone and eggshell fragments from individuals ranging in size from hatchlings to yearlings. This skeleton represents a yearling Dryosaurus. So after 1 year, out of hatching out of an egg, probably no bigger than my fist, it grows into that. Pretty impressive. It's a lot of growth in a year. And these guys would grow up to be maybe 10, 12, 13 feet long. Like maybe approaching 4 meters. Pretty cool. Pretty cool indeed. What do you think of Dryosaurus, laurdee?
I think it's adorable. Maximus says, I thought Stegosaurus plates were for defense.
No, not the plates. Certainly not. So, I mean, the plates are...
The thagomizer would be for defense.
Yes, the spikes on the end of the tail. Those big pointy guys over there, certainly for defense. At least, that's what we think. And we even have some pathologies in theropod dinosaurs from the Morrison, like weird punctures and stuff, like in allosaur vertebrae and stuff, that may have been made by getting spiked by a Stegosaurus spiked tail. But these plates up here are really poorly positioned, and just, they would not be any good for defense. I mean, you've got the entire flank of the animal right here, completely unprotected. If you wanted to, to actually protect yourself, like, use these as armor plates, it makes sense to put them on their sides, but they weren't like that. It's funny, when Stegosaurus was first named by Othniel Charles Marsh, he thought the plates actually lay flat on the animal's back, like the tiles on a roof. That's why he named it Stegosaurus, which means a roof lizard. We no longer think that, obviously. We found articulated specimens, ones that all the pieces are there as they would be in life, and they showed the plates stuck up out of its back. This is consistent with other stegosaur dinosaurs, too, from around the world. They all kind of have that same arrangement. If you want to have armor, you do it like Mimora pelta. This is one of those rare Jurassic ankylosaurs, and it has armor plates all over its back like that. It does not have spikes on the end of its tail like Stegosaurus does. That's those stegosaur spikes. This guy has these plates all up and down his body, and big armor plates over the hips, too. So that might have been a particularly vulnerable spot. So these guys evolved armor over the top to help with that kind of thing. Pretty cool. When I was a kid, these were like unknown. Nobody knew about Jurassic ankylosaurs. So that's pretty neat, yeah. We have an exhibit on the dodo over here. This is interesting. Wow. Maybe we'll look at that in a little bit. But let's check out... This is just like the display we have with all the allosaur femurs in Salt Lake City. It's funny how many of these common themes you see again and again. But everything from... This animal would probably be less than a year old, up to an adult, the size of that femur, way, way longer than my femur. Pretty cool. Yeah. And we've got some claws to go with it, too. Yeah, this one's got turned around. Yeah, from probably about the size of that. Well, that claw might even be a little big for that size femur. Yeah. Pretty cool. Just for comparison, the manual ungule that I have for Big Al would be between these two size classes here. So Big Al, the Allosaurus, not as big as his name might imply. He was probably pretty young when he died.
Chad is discussing whether or not the T-Rex specifically had feathers.
We don't actually know yet.
We don't know yet? Okay.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I said probably.
You said probably?
I said probably.
Probably when they were younger. Maybe they lost them when they matured. We don't really know yet. We don't really have enough information to say anything definitive yet. Yeah. Here is, this is cool, an Apatosaurus dorsal vert, it looks like. And it's pathological? What's broken about it? The disc, wow, was damaged either traumatically or by the stresses of old age and disintegrated, bringing the vertebrae into direct contact. Ultimately, the two vertebrae grew and fused together. Oh yeah, there you go, wow. Two fused verts. This is one vertebra right here, another vertebra right there. I sometimes get asked questions about pathologies in dinosaurs. This is one of those. But also vertebral fusion, that might not necessarily be like a pathology. This might just be something that these dinosaurs did as they matured. And maybe it doesn't happen in a particularly pretty way. This one looks a little haphazard here. These two verts fusing onto each other. But yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Again, this is dinosaur ontogeny here. Pretty cool stuff. Oh, there you go. Here's a food question for you, Laurdee.
Okay.
A Patasaurus weighed as much as how many Big Macs?
A Big Mac is 6 ounces.
6 ounces? Okay.
So they may be like 1.5 per pound.
Okay.
How big is an Apatosaurus, though? I know they're really tall. But how many pounds would one be?
I mean, I've seen estimates ranging from like 20 tons up to like 45, 50 tons for a Apatosaurus.
Wow.
So big range there.
It's like 200,000 Big Macs. That's my
Let's
question.
see.
200,000.
That's your guess?
Yeah. 150,000 Big Macs. Oh my gosh.
411 years worth of lunches. Wow. Pretty cool. Here's a tib from an Apatosaurus. This is the shin bone right here. Pretty nice. That's impressive. That's a real bone right there too. It's not a cast. Very cool. Here's a femur from an Apatosaurus. Also not a cast. Wow. Pretty cool. I like this. Apatosaurus femur prepared by Russell Bucher and dedicated to his memory. Number 1, American hero. Number 2, museum patron. 3, skilled fossil preparator. And 4, friend. Dynamation International Society, 1998. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Well, we've got a pteranodon up here all fleshed out above us. Pretty neat. Look at that. I like how its belly is all stretched out like that, like it just ate some fishes.
Were stegosaurs able to move their plates, perhaps flexing them for display?
That question has been asked before by paleontologists. Maybe. We have no reason to say definitely not, but we really don't have any reason to say yes either. It doesn't really seem like the plates would be like they have good anchor points for muscles to move them, but maybe they could. I don't know. Maybe they could kind of waggle their plates. I'm not sure. Yeah. And before we look at this stuff, let's look at some of these right here. We've now moved on to the late Cretaceous period, at least for the time being. We've got a young T-Rex here. A little derpy looking. And we've got a very old-fashioned Triceratops mount there. I don't know if I'm going to do that. Looks like a butt spot joke right there. Push butt to animate dinosaurs. It doesn't look like there's a button there anymore, anyway. But yeah.
When were dinosaurs distinguished in the scientific community as an entirely unique species than the previous classifications?
What would be new species? It's like a totally new group, a new order of reptiles. That was back in 1842. I think New Year's Day of 1842 was when Sir Richard Owen got up in front of the Royal Society in England and talked about Dinosauria. Originally, there were only 3 dinosaurs that he included in that. These 3 different species. Iguanodon, Megalosaurus, and Hylaeosaurus. Those are the original 3 dinosaurs. And, yeah, ever since then, dinosaurs are they're a distinct group of animals in the sense that they've got different ancestors from everybody else. They're evolutionarily distinct. But the things, like if you want a shorthand for what distinguishes dinosaurs from other groups of reptiles, it would be things like upright limbs. They did not sprawl their limbs. Their limbs were held directly under their body. They've got some interesting stuff in their skull, like the antorbital fenestra. They usually have 5 sacral vertebrae, 5 vertebrae in their hips. And then they've got a very distinctive ankle joint, too. But really, that's not the way we classify animals nowadays. We do it by descent. Like, so what are they actually related to? What did they evolve from? But yeah. It's kind of a more, almost sort of holistic approach than we used to have. Just because we have so much more information now than we used to have. So yeah. Anyway, I've been standing in front of this Triceratops. Very, very old-fashioned Triceratops there. We did. Yeah. There's a Triceratops skull right there. That is pretty neat. That is, I'd call this... This is interesting. This might even be like one of the lower Triceratops prorsus. Look at the size of the nose horn like that, but look at how it curves upward like that. It almost reminds me of Yoshi's trike a little bit. Or like the UCMP library trike. Really interesting. But the texture of the skull looks very mature. I wonder if this is like a super mature Triceratops prorsus. And I wonder how much of that frill has been filled in. I wonder if there's even any fenestration in there. Pretty cool. Pretty cool, chat. Pretty cool. Like I said, you go to almost any like dinosaur museum around the world, and typically they'll have a Triceratops skull, and often it'll be a genuine Triceratops skull. There's got to be 1,000 of these things floating around the world. Very well-known dinosaur, Triceratops, in terms of number of specimens that we found and excavated and studied. Pretty cool. And I guess we'll look at Diabloceratops real quick there too. That's a cast of Diabloceratops. I've worked with the holotype of that specimen, museum in Salt Lake. We saw this just a few days ago, actually. Laurdee, didn't you say you really liked Diabloceratops there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty one for sure. There's a Triceratops forelimb right there. Really, really robust. Big, heavy animals. Check that out over there. Oh, here's a pubis from a Tyrannosaurus. This is the big bone in the hips that hangs down between the legs. And that heel right there would actually rest on the ground as the animal was sitting. And that's real too. This is not a cast. That's a real Tyrannosaurus pubis. At least 66 million years old. Pretty cool. And here's another view of our Triceratops here. That's a big skull. The Triceratops has maybe the biggest skull of any land animal that ever lived. It's got a skull rivaling the size, just in sheer length, of like a blue whale or something. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. You see all the... I wonder how much of that has been reconstructed in the frill. All that scrunginess. I wonder if there should be fenestrae in there. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, when you actually like go back and look at the records of people who had reconstructed Triceratops skulls back in the old days, they're like putting plaster over like patchy areas, and like how many of these Triceratops had Torosaurus-style fenestrae in their frills that just got, you know, covered up by all this material? It's a worthy question. Here we have... This is not a dinosaur. What is this? A marine reptile? Girdle elements. Is this a plesiosaur? Yeah, a plesiosaur. Knight's Owen plesiosaur. Very cool. So this is one of these big swimming reptiles with the 4 flippers. Very cool. Really awesome. Right here in Colorado. And then a hadrosaur from the Cretaceous Mancos Formation. Some cool elements here. Really neat. Cool stuff. Nice duckbill dinosaur fossils. This is pretty neat too. We're going to look at this real briefly. They have a whole area over here about the dodo bird. This is neat. I wonder if this is a traveling exhibit or if this is something local that this museum has put together. This looks like a traveling exhibit. Here is a model of what a dodo would look like. These birds are actually related to pigeons. I think they're Columbidae. They're part of the pigeon family. And of course, living on the island of Mauritius as they did, they didn't need to fly to escape from predators because they had no predators. They had no natural fear of people. So when sailors, I think most of them Dutch sailors, when they showed up, they just slaughtered these poor animals. And also introduced things like pigs and rats to the island, which would eat their eggs. And there we go. Got a dodo skeleton here. I don't think anybody actually has a real complete dodo skeleton. I think we only have handfuls of bones from them. So this has been reconstructed, but it's really well done. It's beautiful. And it's got all these features that you'd also see in other theropod dinosaurs. Like, what's that V-shaped bone right there?
The wishbone?
That is the wishbone. That's the furcula in there. It's pretty thin, but yeah, because it doesn't really need those big flight muscles anymore. Pretty cool. Really neat. Dodo, the story of the dodo is such a sad story. I don't really want to dwell on this too much. Yeah. Here, let's get back into some non-avian dinosaurs over here. Gotta adjust this too. My face is all sweating. This is interesting here. See this big blue shape there? This is Amphicelius fragilimus. This is kind of a legendary dinosaur within the annals of dinosaur paleontology. I think it was Cope that named Amphicelius. What does it say? Off the scale big. Amphicelius fragilimus. Yeah. It was found near Canyon City in Colorado. There is an illustration in, I think it's one of Cope's papers. Edward Drinker Cope, like Bone Wars paleontologist. I'm sure you've heard all kinds of stories about him. About him and Marsh and their big rivalry. These were two East Coast paleontologists that would send crews out here to the West and instruct them to try and find the biggest, most impressive dinosaurs, new things that they could name, put their names on. It was a big competition. They made a lot of mistakes. They got really sloppy in a lot of places, and this is one of those places. Cope had this illustration of a sauropod vertebra in one of his papers, and he named it as a new animal. He called it Amphicelius fragilimus. And in the figures that he put on there, like if you use the scale bar on it properly, the vertebra would be that tall, like close to 3 meters tall, just enormous. It's like almost twice as tall as me. One single vertebra. And if you were to scale this up to the size of the animal, find the entire length of the animal based on that, this animal would be like 200 feet long. Like well over twice as long as a blue whale. The specimen was lost as it was being shipped from Colorado back to the East Coast. So all we have of it is this illustration with that scale bar. So the question is, was it actually that big? Or did Cope make a goof when he was creating the scale for it? It seems like he probably made a goof. An animal that big, it's hard to imagine it walking around on land. That's basically twice as big as any other dinosaur we have. Even the biggest titanosaurs are about half that size. So, yeah. Anyway. Right, Godzilla, exactly, right? He found an aircraft carrier vertebra. Right, Elias, yes. If and when we interview Kerry Woodruff, we'll ask him about Amphicelius here. Over here, who can identify this wacky dinosaur? about the real size for this animal. I like the quills that are on its neck right there, kind of reminiscent of proto-feathers. And this is produced by Dynamation. It's a company that used to do all these robot dinosaurs back in the 90s, in the early 2000s. Pretty cool. That mouth is kind of rough. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Okay. Yeah? It's tired. Poor Dilophosaurus, kind of falling apart. But it is cool to see something, you know, in a dinosaur shape, dinosaur size, moving around. It gives you don't have to imagine it, you know?
From Dottie Matrix.
Oh, thank you, Dottie Matrix. Really appreciate that ongoing support. It means a lot. Thank you for that. Yeah. We'll go let Dilophosaurus have some rest here. And, so Dilophosaurus, you might be familiar with it from the movie Jurassic Park. It, of course, is way bigger than in that movie, in real life. At least the adults were. And, yeah, it looks different. Didn't have, you know, the big, ridiculous Australian frill-neck lizard frill that they show in that movie. They definitely took some creative liberties with the Dilophosaurus in that film. And likewise, they did with Velociraptor, too. This right here is a life-size Velociraptor skeleton. This is actually produced by Bob Gaston. So this is a replica of, I think, a specimen that's held in private hands, which is not cool. All fossils from Mongolia belong to the people of Mongolia, so hopefully the original one gets repatriated at some point. But we've got these lovely casts that you can see in various museums. Does anybody recognize this skull? Does that look familiar to anybody? And it's the same exact Velociraptor skull that I have at home in my office. That's the cast that I got from Rob Gaston. I think you can get those on his website. But, yeah. The Dilophosaurus in Jurassic Park was way too small. Their Velociraptor was way too big. This is actual size for a Velociraptor. So, you know, maybe about 2 feet tall, about 6 feet long. Would have been fully coated with feathers, would have had big long flight feathers coming off of the ulnae. In fact, I don't know if we can see it on here, but that's how we know that dromaeosaurs like this had feathers, is from a Velociraptor specimen. It had these quill knobs there on the ulna. And look at that tail. Those bony stiffening rods on it. Very, very stiff tail, except right there at the base. That's where it's flexible. And Velociraptor is interesting in that, as with a lot of dromaeosaurs, I think all the ones that we have good hips from, the pubis actually points backwards like it does in birds. Most so-called lizard-hipped dinosaurs have the pubis pointing forward, but in very bird-like theropods like dromaeosaurs, the pubis is actually starting to point backwards like that. Same arrangement that you see in birds. Pretty neat. Lordy, this is so cool, like seeing this here. It gives me a good sense of scale for my Velociraptor puppet that I'm working on. Yeah. I'm looking at it right now, and clearly I have the torso on mine too big.
Yeah.
I need to shave that down further. Maybe. Find some way to do that. Or maybe I'll just have a particularly large Velociraptor puppet. But yeah. Very cool. And the tail is way too wide on mine too. But we'll see if we can fix that. Yeah. Neat stuff. Very neat. And there you go, Mayor Space. I agree with you. Yeah. We'll go see that Allosaurus in just a second. But let's check out a close relative of Velociraptor right here.
A real mean kid.
Archaeopteryx. I need to paint my Archaeopteryx specimen so it looks more like this. It's much more visible on camera. But we know that the Archaeopteryx is actually from the same group of dinosaurs as Velociraptor. It's very close to Dromaeosaurus. It's even got that sickle claw on it. Yeah. It's cool to see that right after seeing Velociraptor. Here we've got some Allosaurus elements. Yeah,
I know you've answered this before, but could we real quick talk about the sounds that we're hearing and how we might have told what dinosaurs would have sounded like?
Yeah,
We have a new viewer asking.
most of that is guesswork. Actually, we'll go stand over by the Dilophosaurus while we talk about that. Yeah, so for dinosaur sound, it's speculative. I mean, yeah, Lordy, would you like to go press the button over there again? Get that started? So, when we're trying to imagine what dinosaurs would have sounded like, there's a lot of guesswork there. We know that dinosaurs wouldn't have had the same vocal apparatus as us, as mammals. Wouldn't have made sounds with their larynx. I don't think they really had a larynx. Their vocal apparatus would have been much more similar to those of like crocodiles and birds. But beyond that, beyond like knowing what hardware they had for vocalizing, we really just have to kind of guess at the sorts of sounds that they would make. It's easy to imagine them making loud booming noises like cassowaries or emus, especially since they're so closely related to those. You know, those birds evolved from theropod dinosaurs. So most of the time, I don't know, we just have to kind of make educated guesses, and if you're designing sounds for a dinosaur for a movie or a video game or something like that, keep that stuff in mind that I just told you, but also just make it sound cool, you know? For a few dinosaurs, though, we might actually be able to figure out, at least to some degree of closeness, what they would have actually sounded like. Some of the hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, have these big hollow crests on their heads with, like, air passageways running through. If you could make a model of those air passageways and then blow through it, you might have a rough approximation for how these animals would have sounded. So yeah, that's kind of cool. But for the most part, when we're trying to figure out what dinosaurs would have sounded like, we have to guess. So yeah. Anyway, let's go over here and check out... We'll look at this. Is that a Pachyrhinosaurus real quick? Yeah. This is neat. When we talk about horned dinosaurs, sometimes we look at ones that didn't really have horns to speak of. Pachyrhinosaurus just has this nasal boss right here. I would really be interested to see like a monograph on a bunch of different Pachyrhinosaurus specimens. Up in Alaska, they have a whole bunch of them, all from the same time in the same place. And I'm sure there's a lot of individual variation, like not just ontogenetically, not just like looking at different ages of the same animal, but also just like individual variation. You know, the different individual animals would look different. They've got slightly different genes, just like, you know, every person looks a little bit different. Then you add like injuries and life history on top of that, and it would be really cool just to see how different Pachyrhinosaurs might differ from one another, since we have such a large sample size from places like Alaska and from places like Alberta, Canada. So pretty neat.
Really spectacular. Spared no expense.
It's not often that I get this close to like a Pachyrhinosaurus, so this is neat to see. We've got, looks like a cast of that other Triceratops specimen up there, the one that we saw earlier. Those stubby brow horns. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Pontius Pirate just gifted us 2 Charlie's Dragon.
Thank you, Pontius Pirate. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Yeah. And Mayor Space, I agree, we should print out a Parasaurolophus crest one day and blow through it. But how would you do that in a way that would make it sound like a real animal, you know? And not like a brass instrument or something. I don't know. We've got a lovely Allosaurus skeletal mount right there. Take a look at that. I wonder how old this mount is, because the tail is kind of dragging on the ground like that. You see how it's broken right there, so it doesn't run into the wall? Yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Look at those big forelimbs. He's doing something weird with his wrist right there. And this is a cast of Big Al. That's super cool. Yeah, I wonder if they say Big Al Quarry. There we go. This is Museum of the Rockies specimen 693, Big Al. And here, this is a cast of his skull. So I guess, yeah, it was not too long ago he was named as a new species of Allosaurus, along with some other Allosaurus that are pretty old. I think the ones from Dinosaur National Monument might be the same age, about 149 million years old. It'd be interesting to see if this is cladogenesis or anagenesis going on with Allosaurus. Are they splitting off in a new species, or is it just the same lineage evolving over time and changing? But you'll notice this looks a bit different from the Allosaurus right there. The crests, those lacrimal crests, are a different shape. This one up here looks a little bit more robust. This one here seems a bit more lightly built. Part of that too is going to be ontogeny. Big Al is not a full-grown Allosaurus, so that's going to be part of why his skull looks different. Some more Allosaurus material right here. Sacrum right there, the vertebrae in the hips, and a femur. Pretty neat. I like that silhouette. Very dynamic. And what's over here? Which came first, the dinosaur or the egg? We've got another plesiosaur from the Book Cliffs northwest of Grand Junction. Someone named Cora Gentry found it. Pretty neat. If you live in this part of the world and you spend a lot of time outdoors, there's a decent chance you'll find something like a plesiosaur or a dinosaur. Look at the size of this femur. Even bigger than your femur, though. Look at that. So big that I guess they had to take it out in chunks. Pretty impressive. Yeah, so we've got a juvenile Apatosaurus right there. Maybe, I don't know how old that animal would be. It would hatch out of an egg about the size of a soccer ball or a football. Yeah. So I don't know, this animal's femur when it first hatches out, it's probably about that long. So compare that to the adult. I mean, pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's impressive. This stuff is new. I don't remember seeing this the last time I was here.
Great museum.
Since 2014, yeah. I would have loved coming here on a field trip when I was a kid. This would have been really, really neat. So kids growing up in this area are pretty lucky. They've got this. Very cool. Is that John Foster right there? It's pretty neat. Pretty big femur, and they needed a tractor to get it out of the ground. Impressive.
Would different gases in the atmosphere have affected growth?
Probably. I mean, they have if they were different? Sure, but we don't think they really were different back then. We think the atmospheric composition was pretty similar to today. Yeah, maybe a little bit higher in carbon, given that temperatures were warmer back then. But I don't know. If you talk to different researchers, you'll get different answers about what the composition of the Mesozoic atmosphere might have been. But for the most part, probably not that different from today. I mean, I've got a command, exclamation mark oxygen. It doesn't seem like dinosaurs got big because there was more oxygen in the atmosphere or anything like that back then. They got big for other reasons. Yeah. That's neat. Are you as big as a dinosaur? What do you think, Laurdee?
I'm as big as this dinosaur. Tall.
Yeah. A juvenile Apatosaurus. And actually, this one right here.
I barely even reached the belly.
Probably. I know, right?
I barely reached the belly of a big Apatosaurus.
Of an adult Apatosaurus?
80 feet long. Ridiculous.
I like how it says 80 feet 5 inches long.
5 inches.
17 feet tall. Even taller if they'd rear up on their hind legs to reach up into the treetops. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Oh, here's an Alice. Oh, this is cool. Like estimates for different heart sizes for dinosaurs. An Allosaur heart. I don't know if it would be that big. A Brachiosaur heart. A hummingbird heart. An ostrich heart. Chicken heart. A human heart. And an alligator heart. Pretty cool. Yeah. I wonder if dinosaurs had hyper-efficient hearts that didn't need to be as big or anything like that, especially for big sauropods.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're garfish.
Yeah.
Gar scales are so very popular on your channel.
Exactly, yeah. Here's some actual garfish. Hey, gar buddy. I know I have animals as one of the tags for this stream, so it's cool to have some live animals on the channel for once. Not just extinct animals. Hey, gar. I got to watch them feed when I was here in 2014, which was super cool. And here is long-nosed gar. Look at that long nose. You are an impressive fish there. So these guys lived alongside the dinosaurs. In fact, some of the fossil matrix that I've worked in the past has had a zillion gar scales in it. I found a lot of gar scales in the field, in the Judith River and Hell Creek formations. And those gar would have looked a lot like these gar right now. We've got a few different species still around today. In genus Lepisosteus and genus Atracosteus. I think Atracosteus is the alligator gar. Lepisosteus is like the long-nosed gar, needle-nosed gar, short-nosed gar. Pretty cool. So these fishes live in kind of slow-moving waterways and swamps and lakes, slow-moving rivers. And they are predators. I don't know if you can see the teeth in that jaw right there. But they've got these beautiful little needle-like teeth. Yeah. You do not want to be a small animal like floundering around in the water near a hungry gar. They'll just snap you up. And the big ones, the alligator gar, are so called because their snouts really look like those of alligators. At least superficially. Pretty cool to see an animal like this that I've done a lot of work with as a fossil. Found a lot of gar scales in my day. Sorted a lot of gar scales. Collected a lot of gar scales. It's cool to be this close to one of their descendants. Really neat. You're beautiful. You know that? Look at that eye moving around there. Beautiful. We've got, I guess some more Green River fossils. We've seen plenty of those on this trip so far. There's saber-toothed cat skull. It's funny, there's a few fossils that are just like, they're just requisite. You just have to have them in your museum.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of those. A Smilodon skull. I'm really lucky to have one of these at home, a 3D print, but this one's a cat. And, do you want to try the earthquake, Laurdee?
Yeah.
Right.
Of course I do.
I'll film you while you're doing that.
Alright, what am I supposed to do? Something. 1 minute before pushing the button.
You have to do what?
It's scratched off.
Huh. Maybe you have to wait 1 minute after the last time it was pushed. Might not be working right now.
Might not be working.
Yeah. We, of course, are well familiar with earthquakes, living in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, yeah. Here's some photos of earthquake disasters. It's the famous... Oh, there we go. Should I get on it too?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know, right? Just shake the camera, give them the effect. That's oh Billy Joe. That's pretty fun.
That is cool, yeah. Have you done the earthquake room at the California Academy of Sciences?
No.
We should do that sometime, yeah.
That would be fun.
And there it goes again. There's some plates moving there, that's cool. I wonder if these are supposed to be different earthquakes? I'm really putting the camera stabilization to the test.
Right.
Watch this be perfectly smooth on the VOD.
I think it is, actually. I'm watching it.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh. I wonder if this is meant to replicate, like if,
A specific earthquake?
a specific earthquake, yeah. Let's see. Simulated magnitude 5.3. Huh.
Everybody says it was really smooth.
Yeah. That's funny.
We tried.
We tried. Oh, this is cool. Neat. Check this out, Laurdee. So this is a topo map of Colorado. And we are way over there right now by those green dots, I guess. But look how, just like in Montana, western half of the state, super mountainous, eastern half, flat. Yeah. I think we actually get there's a lot of tornadoes in eastern Colorado, right? Yeah. Pretty cool. We've got different quarries here. Cretaceous, Jurassic, and Triassic age quarries. Green, blue, and purple dots. Scattered throughout the state. Pretty neat. Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Whatever works, laboratory tools, I like that. Here's the paleontology lab. I'll take you around the corner and we'll look in the window there. I've never used a ball peen hammer in the lab before. But most of those other tools I've used. We've got some Vinac bottles over here. Check that out. Looks genuine too. It's got real Vinac crusted onto it. Vinac, of course, is the polyvinyl acetate glue that we put onto fossils in order to help preserve them and consolidate them. And there's the lab right there. This looks, again, more like a working paleo lab. It's still very clean, but this is more like I'm used to looking at. And they have an air system right there, but it's a portable one. That's kind of cool. So we've got those big air filters in the top, those big air intakes, and then those drums at the bottom are where they collect all the dust. That's cool to see a movable one like that. I've not really seen that before. That's neat stuff. And they working on all kinds of stuff in there. I like their like custom built tables. Sandboxes like that. That's neat stuff. Paleontology.
So why the sandbox?
Why the sandbox? So it helps you put irregularly shaped objects.
Keep them.
And
It's
keep
like
them
putting it
steady
on a
and-
sandbag.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool. Yeah. So it's funny, they've got the lab on this side and then the collection space is over on the other side. We just got like a little peek into that through one of the windows. Yeah, neat stuff. I wonder if they've been working on a lot of stuff with COVID, or whether they've been kind of dormant for a while. It almost looks like they've been kind of dormant for a while. Look at this paleontological laboratory. Press button. What does the button do? What does the button do?
I don't want to press it. I don't know. Maybe you talk to them. There's a speaker.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that would make sense, huh? Pretty cool. I like this Gastonia skull in the bubble right here. This is a cast. Very cool, this armored dinosaur. A contemporary of Utahraptor. And then we've got, this is really neat. I haven't seen this before. Rhamphorhynchus. I guess those are, yeah, those little guys up there. The Farber block. Do we have a Rhamphorhynchus block around here somewhere? I guess we don't. That's those little guys up there. Probably more Rob Gaston skeletal mounts. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. This is really neat. What a charming little museum.
It's a great museum.
Yeah.
I'm really happy we came here.
Good. I'm glad.
We almost weren't able to do this stream because of how we had scheduled some stuff, so we switched some stuff around and did the 2 streams today, and I'm really glad we did.
This has been really neat. Got to make sure to get our pressed pennies on the way out.
Okay.
Can't forget about that. And we've only got like half an hour till closing.
If you want to give me the coins, I can get the pennies if you want to keep.
We'll do it live, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like doing them too.
I know you do.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's part of the magic. Are we allowed to go up the stairs to get a view of anything?
Optional viewing area.
Optional viewing area. There we go. Well, I will say yes to that option. Very cool. I've been up here before. Yeah. So again, not a huge museum, but kind of jam-packed with stuff. All kinds of neat things to see. And again, I love that they have put feathers on that Utahraptor. Other museums, take note. It is absolutely possible to put feathers on your old dinosaur mounts. Absolutely possible to feather your old dinosaur mounts. You should do it. You know, take Dinosaur Journey Museum as a good example here. That's so cool that you can look down upon the people working in the prep lab. Very cool. Very cool. I like this a lot. Let's see. And Apocalypse, yeah, the pressed pennies are a great souvenir choice. That's what we've been all about on this trip. I haven't really gotten any other souvenirs. Maybe some stickers. There's the offices over there. I've been in there before. I think I've got some photos of me with the big sauropod femur in 2014. And we've got some iconic dinosaur images up here by Luis C. Hoyos, I think is the photographer for all of those, National Geographic photographer. There's our Chimerosaurus. It's beautiful. Really neat. Wow. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Do you think we should go ahead and wrap this up?
Yeah, I think so. I think this has been awesome.
Awesome. How many people do we have watching right now?
We got up to 113.
Not bad. Okay.
Not bad for an hour and a half.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, cool. Let me see who else is on right now. We'll go ahead and do a raid.
Here's Milk Monsters is on. Chef Nadine is on.
Let's go say hello to Mary over at Mary's Milk Monsters, I think. I think she'd appreciate a raid. Unless we have anybody else.
No, go for it.
Cool. So we'll go ahead and set that up. Let's see. All right. Okay, everybody, we're about to raid Mary's Milk Monsters. She has a bunch, well, she lives with a whole bunch of goats, and so you will get to see a whole bunch of goats. It's always a good time. You're going to like this a lot if you've never seen it before. And, yeah, I think we're going to do a stream tomorrow from the car, aren't we?
That's the plan.
We're going to try and do that.
There's a small chance it might not happen, so if we do, we'll miss you guys, but we are going to try really hard to get a car stream going tomorrow.
We've got like an 8-hour drive tomorrow, so
yeah.
It's going to be a long time. So we'll try and do a stream from inside the car. We'll see how it works out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start this raid. Thank you again, everybody, for your viewership, for your attention, for your excellent questions, and for your support. It means so much to us. Couldn't do this trip without you, so thank you for all of that.
Thank you, guys.
And, yeah, also give laurdee a follow if you haven't done so yet.
Follow me on Instagram. I've been following our journey with some food pics and some little stories and things.
Every
like
good
that,
meal
so.
that we've had, Laurdee's been documenting it. So
yeah.
If you want to see what we've been eating, follow her. And follow her on Twitch, too. She's got a great cooking channel. I think you'll like it. And I show up there a lot, too. Anyway, everybody, let's go raid Mary's Milk Monsters, and hopefully we'll see you very soon. You take care of yourselves, all right? Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. There, perfect.